Welcome everybody to the Asia Institute seminar on Needonomics and the potential for South Korea. My name is Emmanuel Pastreich. I'm the president of the Asia Institute, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Professor Madan Mohan Goel, who is an expert on economics and who approaches it not only in a technical sense, but in a spiritual, political, social, a comprehensive sense. And his insights are most critical to us at this tremendous crisis moment. We're also joined by Dr. Shin Dong-chun for a Korean perspective, and of course, the head of our Peace and Security Program, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, who was so kind as to arrange for this very, very important event today. I think maybe the best format will be first for Professor Goel to give a presentation of his perspective on first introducing to some of us who are less educated about what Needonomics means, what the history is, and then what the implications are for the world and specifically for Korea today. Thank you again for joining us.
My greetings to you all from India. I am speaking from Kurukshetra. Probably you know Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is the first ever university on the planet. I repeat, Kurukshetra as a place is the first ever university on the planet because the objective of a university is to give knowledge. And the best possible knowledge has been given by Lord Krishna himself in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Let me tell you, Bhagavad Gita is a ism neutral, religion-free treatise on management, relationship management, and welfare economics. With this note, let me come to greet the new president of South Korea, Yoon Suk Yeol, who has taken only recently on 10th of May. And I place on record my appreciation to my friend, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, Director Peace of Asia Institute, for organizing this special lecture on relevance of Needonomics for South Korea today. Let me share with you my concerns with South Korea. I was in Seoul, South Korea during 2010-11 as a ICCR Chair Professor of Indian Economy in Hankook University of Foreign Studies, Seoul. And I have some good experiences knowing about the South Korea culture, understanding certain things, and I place on record appreciation for that. The moment I landed in Seoul, I learned that Seoul is the soul of Asia. And I was deeply motivated by the culture, Pali culture, and I have sweet memories of the hospitality I enjoyed in South Korea. Presently, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh told me that South Korea economy is in crisis. Many socio-economic challenges have emerged on the scene that we have to understand. I have been given to understand that birth rate in South Korea is declining. And that is because of most of women, young women, are neither interested to get married. If interested to get married, they are not interested to produce children. And South Korea is becoming super age society, senior citizens coming up, which is going to increase the pension bill of the South Korea government. And there is high suicide rate among the youth. Many reasons may be there, and we need to go in for investigating into that. Korean cities are becoming highly polluted, as I have been given to understand. Economy facing low growth rate, crisis causing serious unemployment among youth, leading to increased unrest. Right. High household debt and low marriage rate, difficulty to maintain a family in Seoul, and there is a danger of nuclear war in North Korea increase, and the peace process has completely collapsed. This has been given to understand, which I have even read in some of the newspapers. With this objective, I have come out with the relevance of Needonomics as an idea of India for South Korean society. To do justice to this topic, let me honestly tell you that we have to understand these challenges which I was narrating to you and the socio-economic crisis facing today in South Korea. And for that, we have to place on record the South Korean society is a fair society, and I have conceptualized society as society is equal to all minus I. I myself is not society, but around me is society as actors, consumers, producers, distributors, and traders. And for this society, which South Korea facing today, we have to learn something from the adage, necessity is the mother of invention, and that rightly explains the importance of need and its economics to be called Needonomics, economics of needs. There is no dearth of literature on Indian economic thought relevant to justify Needonomics. There used to be Maharaja Agrasen, who was contemporary of Lord Krishna, who has given the message of Gita to Arjuna, and that is basically how to make use of the resources available to you. 25% of resources are to be spent on you, 25% are to be spent on your business, 25% need to be saved, and 25% is required to be spent on altruism. That was the take of Maharaja Agrasen, which justifies how to take care of society as a whole from the ventures we are doing it. Secondly, let me tell you Bhagavad Gita, which is also contemporary to the message of Maharaja Agrasen. In Bhagavad Gita, there is one shloka, chapter 22 of chapter 9, which has been used by Life Insurance Corporation of India in its logo, written something down the hands. Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam. Your welfare is our responsibility. And that is a take from Gita. Anyanya Chintanto Mayojana Priyupaste Tesham Nityabhyuktanam Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam. Meaning thereby, Lord Krishna says, if you believe me completely, absolutely, and wholeheartedly, whatever you need, that I'll give you. Whatever you have, that I'll take care of. That gives a birth to the conceptualization of Needonomics, economics of need, and no to greed. Mahatma Gandhi, you know, the father of the nation of India, used to say that earth possesses sufficient to satisfy needs, not greeds. Therefore, we have to confine to needs and to say no to greeds. There is an economist, Professor J.K. Mehta, who has come out with the principle of wantlessness, meaning thereby we must confine to needs and no to greed. Although this conceptualization is a little different. He was always talking of reducing the wants and reducing the expenditure, but I always say that create the need, and God has promised to fulfill these needs. So to ensure the sustainable society, we have to understand, analyze, interpret, and adopt the power of Needonomics, economics of needs, with needo consumption as a stress-free state with no to greed, which cause all the ills, including terrorism, corruption, discrimination, and discontent among youth, which South Korea is even facing. I was telling to you that this conceptualization of Needonomics is flowing from the logo of LIC, and it is basically a common sense approach, which is ethical, non-violent, and spiritual in nature, and understanding Needonomics with spiritually guided materialism strategy. Let me honestly tell you, the rate of progress in spirituality is faster than the rate of progress in materialism. With this note, let me come to the issues. How to develop the South Korean society in the present times under the leadership of new President Yoon Suk Yeol, who has to be guided by the scholars from Asia Institute and come out with how to have progress, prosperity, and peace in South Korea and going for cordial relations with all that. So for that, I have come out with developing my thoughts. We have to do what not, why not, when not, where not, for whom. This question should ponder over the leadership of present South Korea under the leadership of Yoon Suk Yeol, so that we can work without worries to come out of the crisis in the post-pandemic era when we are suffering from many issues in my beloved friend South Korea, where Seoul is the soul of Asia. You know, when we talk in terms of the conceptualization of Needonomics, I have come out with the stakeholders as, firstly, the society. I was conceptualizing all minus I. I myself is not society, but around me is society. Around me, there are 4 stakeholders in totality: consumers, producers, distributors, and traders. When I was educated, I was told that producer is a hero, but gone are the days when we were talking of supply economics. COVID era, lockdown has taught us many things, and today consumer has become the hero, and consumer is to demand whatever is to be provided by the suppliers. Therefore, consumer is the hero of today. In South Korea too, I have seen that most of the malls in South Korea are full of goods and there are no buyers. And presently, the economy is suffering recession. And because there is no purchasing power with the people, that is why consumers are not able to come to purchase the goods. And so far, consumer is interested. As you know, in Bollywood and Hollywood, there are consumers, heroes who are interested in heroin. And heroin for consumer is the goods and services which is to be supplied by the producers, distributors, and traders. In this scheme of thought, let me honestly tell you, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, that all those who create demand problems for the consumers to get the heroin, the goods and services, I call them Willian. And we have to take care of them in case we have to come out of the crisis, even in the post-pandemic era. From that point of view, I have come out with a reach model, which I have conceptualized. We have to read Gita to recall self as soul, which is claimed by Seoul as the soul of Asia. We have to empower ourselves with enlightenment. We must have altruistic approach in terms of altruism to take care of the weaker section of the society with commitment, and we must hold on to needs. That is my take. For understanding the economy as a whole, we have to go in for basically consumers, producers, distributors, and traders who knows the realities before the COVID, during the COVID, and after COVID. And this is equally true for Korean citizens. We have to understand that due to violence around the world, we have a loss of $14 trillion, and our place in India is world 39th in the global peace index, and we have to adopt Needonomics. Becoming Vishguru by learning Gurudom of the self as soul with alertness, awakening, and awareness, we have to join hands with South Korea in developing basically the relationship around the world. We have to understand the Chakravyuh challenges which the South Korean people are facing today in terms of the socio-economic problems. Dr. Lakhvinder Singh was telling me that there is a huge debt on the people, and I call it Cobra effect. When we take some measures, that measures take us to wrong decisions and have wrong implications, which I call Cobra effect. And for that, there is Needonomics, which requires to adopt NAW approach of marketing, Needo banking for a just and sustainable society. Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, I'm showing you something. Is it visible to you?
Yes, sir, I can see it.
You can see it?
Yes, I can see it. Yes.
What is this?
It's a pen. It's a pen.
Not pen, sir. It is a pen type water filter. You know, everybody, water is a problem. Drinking water is not safe. Meaning thereby, I want to create the need of this product around the world where we are having drinking water problem. This pen type water filter can be used in a glass of water, which can be purified there and then. What I have done, I have created a need. Are you interested, Mr. President Asia Institute, to buy it? I'm creating the need of this product.
Yes.
Are you interested to buy it?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
I'll buy
But
one.
let me honest you. I have not told you the price of that. It
Right.
costs $500. Probably you may find it costlier in $500. Now, as a marketer, it is my duty to make it affordable and price it worth of it. So this is a sermon which is required to be given to the entire breed of producers, distributors, and traders to understand this NA approach of marketing, which is practically coming from Needonomics for creating Needo consumption when the economy is suffering from recession, and that too when people don't have purchasing power. That requires to be understood from the point of view of marketing by the distributors and traders. To work without worries for global peace, which is the endeavor of my friend Lakhvinder Singh, who was expressing his concern on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, which is a subject of discussion for everybody. We in India are also worried about this war, which has created crisis in various economies like India and Korea. You know very well that it is going to increase the prices. The scarcity of petroleum products is causing concern, and inflation rate is increasing. And for that, we have to go in for understanding real education, which we call proper, productive, and practical use of hands, head, and heart. We have various conceptualization of deficits: fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, budget deficit, primary deficit, trade deficit, and above all, trust. Trust among the Korean people to be created by the new president of India, the Republic of Korea, to solve it. And we have to reduce the coefficient of distrust. We have to say no to free rider problem, which is requiring the implementation of the user pay principle with self-consciousness. We need to faith in the capabilities and capacities of the disciplined lifestyle of the South Korean people based on Needonomics by understanding the power of worship with devotion. We have to address the illness in the behavior of all the stakeholders in the economy, including consumers, producers, distributors, and traders, above all, policymakers and politicians, both in power and opposition. Opposition leaders has more important to play in making the functioning of any economy like Republic of Korea in right perspective. And for that, we have to have Needo data on performance indicators, calling for strengthening the data infrastructure in the South Korean economy. Although I have been able to find out data on various issues, but that data need to be updated with authenticity so that that can be used for understanding, analyzing the South Korean economy, and to come out with the solution. And for that, all of us as consumers, producers, distributors, and traders, policymakers, and politicians have to become street smart. Although I have learned the word of smart from South Korea long back when I was here in 2011. Galaxy phone was not available to us Indians. Lakhvinder Singh, you agree with me? It was not available to us. But today, almost all Indians are using smartphones. We are conceiving the idea of smart cities. But at the same time, many of us are over smart. Many of us are super smart. We need to become street smart. Street smart person is a person who understands the environment around, who knows what is common sense approach. We have to understand that common sense of approach of Needonomics as consumers, producers, distributors, and traders. And for that, we need to become transparent. You know very well, artificial intelligence is in play, and uses of artificial intelligence is fine. I appreciate, place on record, an appreciation for the uses of artificial intelligence. It is being misused and abused also. Cyber crimes are taking place around the world, including India and Korea. And for that, we have to be alert, aware, and awake. And for that, we have to be responsive. Responsiveness is the name of the game in solving many of the problems. Here, I place on record appreciation for the Pali Pali culture, which I have imbibed from my friend South Korean people when I was in Seoul. Hurry up, quick, quick. Whereas in India, we delay the things. We have to adopt 24-hour, 7-day models in solving the problems of South Korean economy and as well as India. For that, I wish to draw kind attention of the new president of South Korea, Mr. Yoon Suk Yeol, to invite the economists from all shade and crease and use their wisdom with faithfulness so that economy can be executed in right perspective in South Korean context, which is a friend of India, and we have to strengthen our relationship with responsiveness with Pali Pali culture. And for that, we need to become action oriented. We should not be target oriented, that we have to take sides with Ukraine or Russia. We have to ensure global peace. Peace, progress, and prosperity is the endeavor of our leaders from India. Our Honorable Prime Minister is all day and night working for that we have to become result-oriented, action-oriented in restoring peace, progress, and prosperity at the global level. And for that, you know, we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And for that, the idea of India of Needonomics is most relevant. And that comes out with morality, ethics, and economics. Let me honestly tell you, economics without ethics is like eyes without sight. And that calls for basically imbibing the lessons of Needonomics, where profit is pure, Shubh Labh. Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, you know that we go in for Shubh Labh. That is basically economics with ethics, which is nothing but Needonomics, which we have to imbibe. And for that, we need to learn something from the model which I have developed in South Korea only. When I was in Hankook University of Foreign Studies, I have come out with these two models, smart and simple model, which is there in my book, Economics of Human Resource Development, which was taught there in Hankook University of Foreign Studies in the Graduate School of International Area Studies. When I was there, I developed this model. Simple, you know, Mahatma Gandhi used to say, simple living and high thinking. But I always say, simple living and no thinking. No thinking does not mean that we should not think. We should think of those things which are in our control. We should not think of those things which are not in our control. And that is the message of Bhagavad Gita also. My guru, as resident, scholar, student, and teacher of Kurukshetra University, I always say that we have a right on our actions, not on the result. And that has to be imbibed when we think of the crisis created by COVID. And it is the responsibility of the researchers to understand the South Korean economy before COVID, during COVID, after COVID. And the new president of South Korea deserves to be made aware of the facts, the realities which is going on in the South Korean economy today, the socio-economic problems in terms of low birth rate, in terms of senior citizen society, in terms of debt problem, and we have to face the challenges from the neighboring country, North Korea, as well as China. And that calls for learning many things from Needonomics, Needo research, Needo entrepreneurship, Needo employability, And that calls for simple model to be understood, analyzed, interpreted, and adopted. We need to go for emotional quotient development. Emotional quotient is a concept related with your heart. Gone are the days when we were talking of IQ. IQ has become obsolete. It is possessed by your smartphone. It is possessed by your laptop. Today, if we as South Koreans have to be better than the smartphone, better than the laptop, we have to have higher emotional quotient. We have to motivate ourselves, motivate others, and empathize with others, not sympathize with others. We have to be empathetic with the weaker section of the society who are suffering from crisis after crisis in post-COVID era. Our consumers are getting problem of purchasing power. For that, the South Korean government should feel concerned. And with that, we should go in for developing the emotional quotient of South Korean people. We have to learn something from Bhagavad Gita, love oneself attitude. Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, you will agree with me that soul is immortal. Death rate is 0. And as a physical body, death rate is 100%. Everybody is to die. Then why to worry about death? And that is the message I have been delivering day in and day out to all people during the COVID era. And this is relevant even today. COVID era is not over. Still, we are to face fourth variant of the COVID, and we have to develop this love oneself attitude as a soul. Without this, we cannot do altruism. We cannot take care of the fair society which South Korean people have been talking about. For that, we must adopt this love oneself attitude. Physical development, health culture. I know that South Korean people are health conscious. They enjoy their food in restaurants. I have seen that most of the people in South Korea eat outside in restaurants. One interesting thing I have observed in South Korean restaurant is that there is no child labor. Although women are working, but no child labor is there in South Korean restaurants. Here I am reminded Lakhvinder Singh and that this WHO protocol of health has given us many lessons. You know, people have stopped shaking hands, people have stopped hugging, and today our Indianization of Namaste and Namaskar stands internationalized. And that is a good sign of consolation to us that health era of COVID has given us internationalization of Indianization for Namaste and Namaskar. That is the health protocol which has given as a positive implication. Mental level development of the people of South Korea need to be changed. We have to stop this blame game, war of words against the government. Although opposition leaders have an important role to keep a check on the functioning of the South Korean government, and new president should be aware of that. But that calls for making a change in looks, actions, and words to make it love the land. In my friend South Korea's people who are trusted around the world for their honesty. And I believe that South Korean people can prove their mettle in becoming the world leader in all times to come. And that intuition I have is on the basis of Seoul as soul of Asia. Every people living in Seoul must understand what soul is. And that makes a case for spiritually guided materialism strategy. I believe the rate of progress in spirituality is faster than the rate of progress in materialism, which justifies spiritually guided materialism. We have not to spend entire income on ourselves. We have to save it for others. We have to save it for ourselves. We have to invest it. We have to increase the domestic saving rate for increasing the investment rate so that it can take to capital formation and economic development, economic growth can take place so that we can have sustainable society. And that calls for spiritual quotient development. Let me honestly tell you, IQ is obsolete today. Emotional quotient is possessed by animals also. Human beings as Koreans and Indians are superior than the machine and animals only by spiritual quotient. We have to develop our spiritual quotient with which we can prove to be better than animals and the machines. Therefore, I believe South Korea has a bright future to be by believing in Pali culture and adopting Needonomics, smart and simple model. With this, I have a ray of hope that new president of South Korea, Mr. Yoon Suk Yeol, will take the South Korean economy to the great heights. He will be able to solve most of the crises prevailing in the South Korean society today, including low birth rate, including senior citizen society, and the crisis created by North Korea, China, and all that can be taken care of the new leadership under the authority of the President Yoon Suk Yeol. So, my dear friends, let me conclude my discussion with you that we need faith in the capabilities of Koreans with Pali culture in Needonomics-based disciplined lifestyle. We have to ensure public well-being in the uncertainty of the future in South Korea. We have to strengthen knowledge sources and develop the abilities for possible solutions in the principle of Needonomics. Needonomics is required for saying no to most of the problems caused by Greedonomics, including violence, terrorism, exploitation, deprivation, discrimination, discontent, and corruption of all kinds prevailing in Korea as well as India. We have to adopt this principle of Needonomics, which is an investment in innovation. Let me repeat, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh. Needonomics is an investment in innovation for all times to come. And the challenges of the South Korean economy as well as society in terms of all the indicators which you have told me have to be checked into for adopting this Needonomics. To create demand for the goods and services, there is a strong case for adopting the NA approach, need, affordability, and worth approach to international marketing. We have to adopt Needonomics flowing from Gita and become street smart, simple, moral, action-oriented, responsive, and transparent Koreans with no to Greedonomics. We need well-structured rules for all the sectors in the economy with healthy discussions on the stakeholders' point of view as a sunk cost. Mr. President, Asia Institute, I draw your kind attention. The investment in innovation of Needonomics is to be called sunk cost, meaning thereby we have to experiment the idea of Needonomics, which is required to be adopted by the South Korean government as a sunk cost. And with this, we can come out with the solutions. There is no political angle to the knowledge of Needonomics, but peace, progress, and prosperity of all kinds, providing immediate, visible, and practical solutions to the problems created by Greedonomics with common sense approach and zero risk. Let me put in, Mr. President, zero risk in experiencing the mandate and for existence coming from Needonomics for South Korea. To work without worries for existence, we need real education as proper, productive, and practical use of hands, heart, and hands. We have to address the illness in the behavior of all the stakeholders in the economy, including consumers, producers, distributors, traders, policymakers, and politicians. We need faith in the capabilities and capacities of the South Korean people and leadership. With this, I'm grateful to the President, Asia Institute, Seoul, my friend, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh, who had made it possible to share my thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Sir, you are muted. Sir, you are muted. I can't listen to you.
Okay.
Say
I'm
again.
sorry. Okay, I'll start again. So thank you, Professor Goel, for your very thoughtful and timely talk about Needonomics and its extremely relevant aspects for Korea today in light of the current economic crisis and also social, cultural issues having to do with the family, the role of women, the concept of work and economics, and the continuum of this crisis, which spreads, of course, around the world. Very inspiring words for all of us. So I think I will first ask maybe whether our two members of the group, Dr. Singh and Dr. Shin, if they would like to make any comments or questions for Professor Goel. So maybe starting with Dr. Singh.
Thank you. When we talk about India-Korea relationship, the whole focus is how to sell, how to buy.
Right.
So this corporate culture has destroyed everything, In ancient civilization, India and Korea was learning from each other very spiritual things. But now, only thing that comes to mind, people, how to sell in India, how to buy it from Korea. So this corporate culture have destroyed everything else. So very few times, we have invited a professor like Goel to come to Seoul and share the teaching. So this is the core of the problem today, So whole human existence has been hijacked by economics. So, but traditionally, Korea and India was learning from each other in a very big way, So there was a lot of spiritual exchange of ideas between India and Korea. So we have to start that linkage again, India is not about big market. India is the epicenter of spiritual knowledge. And Professor Goel is the leading professor in that branch of knowledge. So far there is serious lacking on the part of Koreans. They defined Korea, India very limited, in very limited sense of a term. Whenever we talk about India-Korea relationship, immediately they start talking about, what we can sell in India, what we can buy from Korea. This kind of things are horrible. This kind of destroying everything. Buying and calling is just a small part of human life. We have to define our life in a big way. We are human beings. We are not robots. So we have a spiritual soul. We have to enrich our souls. We have to become living human beings. But what has happened that these corporate forces, these forces of greed, have destroyed everything, which was very good for India-Korea cooperation. India-Korea cooperation is spiritual exchange of ideas. Buddhism came from India, and we influenced Korea's culture in a very big way, and we learned many, very good things from Korea. Korea is a big thing, much bigger than selling goods. So we have to establish that spiritual connection. That was one of the thought which was happening to my mind when I decided to invite Professor Goel to come back, because I want to reconnect our old culture, old tradition with Korea. We was learning from each other very, many big things, very, how to live a good life, how to live a God-centered life, how to live a fulfilled life. But these days, if you talk about God, if you talk about spiritual life, if you talk about spiritual content, people start laughing at you. So you need a strong spiritual connection, strong spiritual conviction to talk about this kind of things. So Professor Goel is a very strong person. He was in Korea. Now he's a vice chancellor, a very famous university in India. He has withstood the attack. He has withstood. People are laughing. People say, "What are you talking about? What is this?" In this age and time, when everybody is talking about profit, when everybody is talking about gains, economic gains, how can you talk about spiritual happiness? So this is the problem. So when the professor was talking about work without worry, I think this is the most important thing which we can take home now. In Korea, there's not a single place where you can work without worry. Everywhere, so much tension, so much pressure, so much. I don't know how to describe. Workplace in Korea has become horrible. But nobody can go to workplace and live and come home happily. That's why almost 90% of Korea from work, they directly go to a drinking place. Because by the time the day is over, they're completely stressed. They're completely ruined, So in that kind of situation, to bring a concept that you can work without worry is a kind of blessing from God. We have to find something we can go to office, work as much as we can, then we go home. We don't need to drink. We don't need to waste time in the restaurants. We have to go directly to our children, directly to our family, have fun with them, play with them, read some good book, then sleep, then go to work again. That was supposed to be the real idea of human existence. But now in Korea, life has become so tense that everybody gets at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, take some food and then go to work. And by the time you come to work, you are completely exhausted, completely lost. You don't know. That is why so much drinking is happening in Korea. And that is the root cause why there's no children, why there's no care of old people, why there's so much suicide, why there's so much isolation, why old parents are dying in loneliness. No, why Korea has failed to solve its security problems like North Korea, like China. Why? Because people are not in a position to think through the whole thing. So it's complicating the whole situation. It's complicating the whole situation. So we have to restore back to Professor Goel's idea. If you want to live a happy life, Korea is rich. Of course, Korea is a rich country. Almost rich society. People get a lot of big salaries. But question is, are they happy? Are they living a satisfied life? Are their children happy? Are they living in a family? Those questions has been ignored. Those questions has been ignored completely. Now, that is why Professor Goel was trying to talk to the president of Korea and people of Korea. That time has come. Becoming rich itself is not a solution. No, it's not an end in itself. Becoming a rich life, becoming a happy life, contentment life is more important than becoming rich. But not many people in Korea today talk about that. So that is why I have decided to bring Professor Goel. So when he talk about trust deficit, when he talk about living a simple model of growth, human growth, there are key ideas we can take home today. If time allows, some other time we will bring him. We will translate his lecture into Korean and try to spread it lecture so that people can understand that there's something fundamentally wrong the way they do their business, the way they do their daily work. Contentment, spiritual contentment is the key to live a good life. So far, so much problems are happening. Low child birth rate is a serious problem for Korea. Concentration of wealth in few hands is a serious problem for Korea. Korea becoming a society is serious problem for Korea. Pollution, environment, almost every city is full of dust. Even now, you cannot park your car in open. The 10 minutes your car park is open, your car is full of dust.
Right.
Just imagine that dust is going inside your body. How can you even live? So there's a serious problem, environment problem, family problem, the social hold problem, debt problem, in North Korea, nuclear problem. How can you ignore all these issues? And let's talk about few issues. That is why Korea, being democracy, simply cannot ignore these kind of issues which are affecting human life in Korea, human quality life. Quality of human life is the key to live a life. So Professor Goel, I want to congratulate Professor Goel for his courageous lecture and for his conviction that it is very important to live a truthful life, live a simple life, live a Needonomics, need-based life. Extreme consumption. Korea is consumption, extreme consumption, extreme. If you don't consume, society will collapse. Society has become consumer-based society. How can you live a happy life in this kind of growth model? So we have to have a total fundamental transformational life. We have to start living a simple life, need-based life, not a consumption-based life. But now what is happening? Korean government, Korean corporation encourage you to do more and more consumption. How can you even, no matter how much money, I make even $20,000 per month, still money is lacking. By the end of the month, I have no money left. Why? Because I'm living a consumption-based life, not a need-based life. And so that is why no matter how much money you earn, by the end of the day, you are a poor man. You are a lost man. You are nowhere. So that is why this has to stop. This has to, if Korea want to have a sustainable life, sustainable growth, the future, Korea has to have a fundamental transformation from corporate life to Needonomics life, simple life. This kind of lectures are very important now. New administration is starting in Korea. Of course, he has very good foreign policy. He wants to have good relations with USA. He wants to have a good relationship with, that is important, but that's not enough. That's not enough. We have to have a good social life. We have to have a good simple life. People in the street, people in their homes should be happy. People in their homes should have children, should be able to live with their grandparents, should have a savings in their accounts. should have a love in their life. That's very important. But now nobody cares about love. No, how can you think about having a rich proper society when there's no love, no children, no group, no grandparents, no happiness? Everybody has to drink alcohol in the evening to fool himself. So how a fool-based society can go on forever? Now, 99% Koreans try to pass the day, try to sleep, but drinks are ruined. You have to live a simple life, truthful life, and then you can live a happy life. But now Korea has so that's why we're trying to tell most of the people in Korea are trying to tell how to have a relationship with Japan, how to have a relationship with North Korea, how to have a relationship with China, and other things. I don't think those issues are important, but not important. Most important is that how Koreans can live a happy life. How Koreans can have a children again. How Koreans can live with their grandparents. How children can learn from their parents and grandparents. How Korean children can play in the street again. When I was young, I used to play in the street openly. But now, have you ever seen a Korean child playing carelessly in the street? No, those days are gone. Now society has become so corporate-based that all the simple happiness of life has gone. That is why we need lectures like Professor Goel, so that Korea can come back to his past tradition. Korea was epicenter of Buddhism. Korea was a very spiritual country. Very spiritual country. It was people living a very traditional life, very family-based life. Now family has completely collapsed. How can we let it continue like this for a long time? So that are my thoughts, that my perspective, that time has come. We should break the current culture of corporate culture of growth, and we should come back to our simple human life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh.
What happened? Hello, miss. Hello?
Hello?
Yes,
I'm
I can hear you.
Dr. Shin, I'm waiting your comment or your question.
Okay, is it my turn? Okay. Frankly speaking, it may need a lot of explanation for the current Korean crisis. Let's begin my discussion by talking about ideological perspective. Korean economics, especially since China joined the WTO, World Trade Organization, Korea is emphasizing to reduce cost. So China is providing goods with very low cost. So absolutely, Korean economics have much benefited from such low cost from China. But as time goes by, China, in return for cheaper labor and cost, they demanded political demand. For example, SAD. For example, SAD. They are threatening sanctions. Actually, they did sanctions a lot by our importing SAD from United States. We have suffered very much from that. So as time goes, we felt the more and more pressure from China for them to ask us to change our system into their system, communist regime. So previous government, before Yoon Suk-yeol government took office very recently, a lot of politicians was heavily influenced by China and North Korea. So we are very much influenced, and general Korean people are also very much influenced by that ideological perspective of leftist government. As a result, our society was lost our way. What I'm saying is that we have to restore fundamental value of liberal democracy as well as market economics, market-oriented economics. Because we believe those two values are the fundamental pillars of our constitution and also is the universal value worldwide. We have to keep that principle so that we can restore our economy and politics in a right way, right direction. Otherwise, we can continue to be lost in the two rival powers between China and the United States. You know, United States and Western power seems to make a big turn to be against China. They would like to make a decoupling from the trade and other rather interaction with China. Right. Because they believe that it turned out that China is penetrating world market by their cheap labor of low cost, but they insist on inflicting their communist ideology by having, for example, Confucius Institute worldwide, even in the United States and Western Europe and even in Korea. So we are very much heavily influenced. Now, Yoon Suk-yeol government, President Yoon began by speech by emphasizing liberal democracy and free market economy principle. And he mentioned freedom more than 20 times in his short speech. So I love that. I can abide that principle because we Korean society should abide and should respect that kind of value as a fundamental value for Korean society. Now, turning to spiritual side, which Professor Goel and Dr. Singh emphasized, yeah, we have to shape ourselves into more spiritual-oriented society by having more morality, more value-oriented society. Of course, we have been recording world is the highest suicide record and world is lowest birth rate, which means we are sick. Korean society is sick by itself. So we have to deviate from money-oriented society to more value-oriented society, more spiritual. We have to teach our children, for example, by teaching traditional value, including Confucius education, things like that. So we have to restore our tradition. You see, leftist government tried very hard to abolish the legacy of Lee Sing-man government and Park Chung-hee government, who has achieved a lot for modernization and democratization of modern Korea. But leftists denied that accomplishment totally. So they would like to abolish Lee Sing-man from the history, our history textbook, which is not acceptable to us. We have to focus tradition. We have to focus on our real accomplishment. Who built Korea from the ashes from Korean War? So two presidents accomplished that miracle, so-called Han miracle, until now. What I'm suggesting is that we have to get back to a fundamental principle of liberal democracy and market-oriented economic, and also emphasizing spiritual build-up and restoring our morality to a universal level in the world. Okay,
Thank you.
let me stop here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Shin, for your insights and for your historical perspective on the current crisis. And then we have another participant whose name I don't have. I have only Samsung. Please introduce yourself and any comments you'd like to make.
Hi, how are you? My name is Jill Jang, and I'm a PhD student from Dongguk University. I graduated in 2016. I enjoyed listening to all you speakers make speeches about happiness and spiritual wholeness and physical well-being. And I totally agree with all that you are saying. And I think that we should promote such values more in the future in South Korea. I feel that many religious sectors have done their part, such as Christians, Buddhists, Catholics, even Muslims. But overall, this is a very secular society. And religion is not that much emphasized in daily life of about 50% of ordinary South Korean citizens. They are secular. They don't have any religious faiths. So I feel that we should somehow introduce more spiritual wholeness, like you speakers all said and agreed, into this society, so that despite how much one has or have not, how much one learned or did not learn, how much one is healthy or is poor, we can be happy given in this current circumstances and situations that we are cast into in daily life. Just being happy as you are. I mean, I heard one teacher once who told me this: you're not such a bad person. You have many good qualities. You might have some poor qualities, but overall you're an okay person. Now, you might not be able to compose a symphony like Amadeus Wolfgang Mozart, but given the whole life to spend, you also can compose a wonderful symphony all to your own tune. And it is only your symphony, because if other person did it, he would do it another way. So don't feel bad, feel good, and go out and live and be happy. And I think I totally agree with the teacher's remarks. So I think I'll end my comments here and listen to you wonderful speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chan. And then finally, from the Asia Institute, from 3E program, Dr. Lane Hartzell.
Well, greetings from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Thank you, Emmanuel and Lakhvinder, for inviting me to stop in with your meeting. My name is Lane Hartzell, and I'm a research professor at the Asia Institute working on energy, economy, and environment, and also things related to biology like biodiversity. But specifically, I've been working on access to information and critical dialogue in the public around Emmanuel's idea of the constitution of information. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm looking forward to, I listened to Professor Shin, and I have some questions, but I'd like to do that when you allow me, or however it works. So thanks so much, and I'm happy to be here.
So thank you very much. Let's return to Professor Goel for your comments or response to any of the points raised, or any closing points you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to see that most of the speakers have felt their concern about the peace, progress, and prosperity of South Korean economy. At the same time, there are some questions on comment box. Soul culture is very lacking here, as suicide rate is 20 years top, 10th among OECD nations.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that. Why people commit suicide? I was telling to you that as soul, we are immortal. Death rate is 0. Even during the COVID era, Mr. President, let me honestly tell you, I was able to prevail upon people around me. There are no worries about death. As a physical body, Mr. President, you have to die. I have to die. Lakhvinder is to die. Everybody is to die. And death rate is 100%. Then why suicide? Why suicide? I fail to understand. And that calls for promoting that soul culture. Seoul is the soul of Asia. But let me honestly tell you, we need to conduct a survey. Dr. Lakhvinder saying, how many people in Seoul understand what soul is? Simply putting it up on the caps, Seoul is the soul of Asia, cannot solve the problem of Seoul. We have to make them understand what soul is. And the message of soul comes from the holy land, Kurukshetra, where I live in. I was telling to you that Kurukshetra is the first ever university. Presently, message for the president of South Korea is to move on the ladder of success in solving the socio-economic problems of South Korea is to believe in Krishna as God and Arjun as his own soul. That is called Ek Shloki Gita. If you put it in Google search engine, you will get the message of Gita in one shloka, although there are 700 shlokas in 18 chapters. But one shlok, which is called Ek Shloki, is Yatra Yogeshwar Krishna, Yatra Parthar Dhanurdhar, Tatra Sri Vijo, Uttardita Mitramitramam. Meaning thereby to move in the ladder of success with morality, opulence, victory, and empowerment for the development of South Korea under the leadership of the new president, Yoon Suk Yeol. We have to believe Krishna as God and Arjuna as soul, and we all as a duty, as a consumers, producers, distributors, and traders, policymakers, and politicians to imbibe this message. With this, we can go in for understanding, analyzing, adopting Needonomics as a sunk cost, as investment in innovation, which is required to be financed by the government of Korea or the agencies like Samsung to sponsor a project on Needonomics, for which I offer my services to the Asia Institute to ask for the South Korean government to finance this project and let me come to Seoul for doing this work on the empirical study and to come out with how to create Needo consumption, Needo employability, Needo education, Needo health,
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
Yeah, something happened.
Seems to be
It
frozen.
hanged.
Well, anyway, until Professor Goel comes back. Here, okay. Can you say that one more time, Professor Goel? We missed the very last part.
I was just pressing upon that the government of Korea or the Samsung kind of research bodies should sponsor a project on relevance of Needonomics for South Korea today, for which I accept the offer and request Dr. Lakhvinder Singh to proceed with it with the South Korean government or Samsung or any research organization to finance this project. I'm ready to come to Seoul.
That would be a great honor for us.
Let me be a part of Asia Institute also.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, maybe I can ask one question, if you mind, if you don't mind, and and that is when I hear your suggestions, it seems to be frozen again. Oh, so I'll ask one question. So when speaking with Koreans in government or in industry or elsewhere, their immediate response to these sort of suggestions to emphasize other aspects of experience, either spiritual or even cooperative approaches to society and economics, their answer is, well, our whole activities are all assessed and judged based upon consumption, production, exports. So even though we like these ideas, we can't use them because of the way in which policy is assessed. So how do we start to change this, the way in which the whole government, the whole system assesses success?
Let me honestly tell you, Mr. President, that they understand it.
Mhm.
They should be faithful to the intentions of the will of people who have given them the mandate to come into power.
Right.
And people at large are victims. They are suffering. They are in crisis. And for that, we have to prevail upon them very diplomatically. We have to tell that the economy which is in recession, not because of supply, not because of the producers, not because of the broken chain of supply management, but it is because of the demand. Demand is not there. Even in 2010-11, when I was in Seoul, I visited many malls, and I believe that the product which is sold on 100% for just 1 month, they shifted to the second hall where it is being sold in 75%. Why? Because there are no buyers on that price. Ultimately, that comes to the main hall where there is one free with one, meaning thereby they don't have a marketing strategy. For that marketing strategy, I have come out with NAW approach, need, affordability, and worth approach, which is practically coming from Needonomics. Needonomics does not mean that we have to confine to needs. Rather, we have to create the needs. Let me honestly tell you, I was creating a need for this product for you.
Right.
Anti-filter. Similarly, all Korean products, let me tell you, a friend of mine in South Korea wanted to sell CCTV cameras. He wanted to offer me. I could not do that marketing. I'm basically a teacher. But if I could have been a man of marketing, practically going to the market, I could have fetched a fortune within 10, 12 years, became the leader of the market in CCTV camera. Meaning thereby, if we want to sell our products, we have to create need of consumption, which is mindful consumption, not simply reducing the consumption, which is judicious expenditure. We have to adopt cost-effective approach, which is required to be understood not only by the consumers, but by the government policymakers. And I believe if this message goes to your leadership, 100% sure that Asia Institute is going to be recognized for doing this research, and a lot of projects will be coming not only from the South Korean government, even we can apply to World Bank for that, because entire global economy is suffering from the crisis created by recession. Therefore, relevance of Needonomics is not only required by South Korea, but is required by all the countries which are suffering from the challenges of post-COVID era. So with these words, I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goel. We appreciate your insights. I deeply appreciate the responses here in Korea, the insights as to the specific application. And we look forward to a future cooperation and future research, and hope we can put together a viable plan going forward for certainly having an economic strategy that's focused on needs and the spiritual aspects of human life, human experience, is absolutely critical, especially at this time of such deep spiritual, ideological, economic crisis. Thank you again.
I think hello? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, make your, if you'd like to make final comments.
Yes.
Okay.
I think Professor Goel was making very good point. So far, focus was only from India to Korea, how to sell and buy. But time has come when we should focus on knowledge exchange between India and Korea. No,
Right.
India is a gold mine of spiritual knowledge, practical knowledge. So that part of exchange, that part of we can say trade has been ignored so far. I think we should take Professor Professor Goel's offer very seriously. How can we have a exchange between Korea and India, and at what platform, and what could be the medium for that exchange? No, so that is a critical point, that we should look at a bigger picture, not just selling goods and from here and there.
Right.
So
Very true.
I think Professor Goel was proposing a very good idea. I fully endorse his proposal, and I think if we start looking at a bigger picture, that India and Korea are much more than selling few products here and there and putting some factories, as it has been defined by our diplomats and officials, and that is very narrow approach. We need a comprehensive approach between India and Korea, and we have a comprehensive knowledge sharing agenda, knowledge sharing.
Excellent.
So for Professor Goel is very active. We can do together, and if possible, we should carry the appropriate agency in Korea. Korea need this kind of program, no?
Well, that's an excellent point, Dr. Singh, and a good proposal. We look forward to our future cooperation and research, and want to thank again Professor Goel for joining us today, and for Dr. Singh, Mr. Chang, Dr. Hartzell, and of course, Dr. Singh here in Korea for giving their responses, and look forward to our next event. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us today. Thank you again, Professor Goel.
Thank you, sir.